Our modern culture has programmed us to resist rather than truly live. From a young age, we absorb silent lessons: don't cry, be strong, swallow your pain. We've turned resistance into a virtue, stoicism into courage, and functioning into health. Yet, our bodies register everything: every suppressed emotion, every swallowed tear, every silent scream. This is precisely why millions of people today feel empty, overwhelmed, or physically ill. Emotional pain doesn't vanish when ignored. It transforms, hides, but keeps pulsating. When it finds no voice, it screams through the body, relationships, or addictions. Dr. Gabor Maté, a global authority on trauma and healing, has revolutionized our understanding by showing that the root of most physical and psychological suffering lies in our disconnection from our own essence. Healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means having the courage to face it with self-love. Here's the most liberating revelation: your healing journey can begin right now, even before stepping into a professional's office. It all starts with an internal decision to stop running from yourself. This choice, which may seem simple, is one of the greatest acts of human courage. It's not about cinematic heroism, but about an intimate commitment to your own truth. And yes, that truth often hurts. It brings us face to face with memories, decisions, and silences we'd rather keep buried. But it's precisely in this courageous confrontation that real transformation becomes possible. Recognized pain becomes a passageway. Denied pain becomes a prison. 1. Acknowledge. Something in you needs care, ****. The first step toward healing is admitting internally that there's a wound begging for attention. This sounds basic, but notice how many people around you live on autopilot, smiling when required, fulfilling obligations, achieving goals, while carrying a hole in their chest. They wake up, work, socialize, sleep, but something fundamental is missing. That absence has a name: inner disconnection. True healing begins when you find the courage to whisper to yourself, "I'm not whole. I need to understand myself. I want to discover what's happening inside me." This admission is deeply personal. No therapist, no matter how skilled, can help someone unwilling to see themselves with absolute clarity. The first step, then, is to create inner silence. Turn off external noise and finally listen to what your soul has been trying to communicate for so long. When you truly pause to listen, pain reveals its message. A part of you is pleading for attention, care, presence. 2. Free your emotions from the inner courtroom, ****. The second step is to let your feelings exist without subjecting them to the judgment of your mind. We've been conditioned to label emotions as appropriate or inappropriate, noble or shameful. We cry and immediately censor ourselves. This is weakness. We feel anger and condemn ourselves. Good people don't feel this. But here's the liberating truth: your feelings don't define your moral character. They reveal your humanity. Feeling is your birthright. It's how your essence communicates with you. Every emotion, even the most intense and uncomfortable, carries an important message. When you receive them without judgment, they can deliver their wisdom and follow their natural course. Starting your healing is a revolutionary act of inner listening. It doesn't require fancy tools or complex techniques. It demands genuine presence and a willingness to dive into your inner world. By doing so, you begin to untie the emotional knots that keep you trapped in old cycles of suffering. From this moment, a new adventure begins: the journey of reconnecting with yourself. 3. Uncover the silent traumas of childhood, ****. One of Gabor Maté's most profound insights is that trauma isn't defined by what happened to you, but by what happened inside you in response to what you experienced. In other words, trauma isn't necessarily the event itself, but the internal rupture it caused in your connection to yourself. And because it's invisible, countless people carry traumas without even suspecting their existence. How many grew up in families where there was no overt violence, but a lack of emotional warmth, validation, or true presence? How many learned early on not to be a burden, to swallow their feelings, to become emotionally invisible. These seemingly functional environments often create the deepest wounds because they teach you that your feelings are irrelevant. This message, absorbed over years, crystallizes into destructive beliefs. I'm a burden, I'm too problematic, I don't deserve to be truly loved. The third path to healing, therefore, is to identify these invisible childhood traumas and understand how they still shape your adult life. This doesn't mean blaming your parents or staying stuck in the past. It simply means recognizing that many of your current reactions, fears, dependencies, and troubled relationships are unconscious strategies to cope with old pains still echoing silently within you. When we don't understand our original wounds, we spend decades trying to fix ourselves externally, unaware that the root lies within. We repeat destructive patterns, self-sabotage, and attract situations that confirm our most painful beliefs. Only by shedding light on this pain can we begin to free ourselves from it. This recognition requires brutal honesty. Sometimes you'll confront memories you'd rather keep buried. Other times, you'll realize your wounds have driven your choices for decades. It can be devastating to acknowledge that much of what you've lived was survival disguised as life. But this pain is transformative. It awakens you, propels you toward action, toward real change. And it's here that you discover a fundamental truth. There is no authentic healing without self-compassion. As Gabor Maté repeatedly emphasizes, self-compassion isn't self-indulgence. It's the foundation of all true healing. 4. Cultivate unconditional self-sheltering ***. This brings us to the fourth path, developing unconditional self-sheltering. Self-sheltering means looking at yourself with tenderness, especially when you don't understand what you're feeling. It's offering yourself the care you may not have received. It's saying internally, I see you, I understand you, I'm here with you, and repeating it until the wounded child inside you finally believes it, until they feel they're no longer abandoned. This process isn't instant. It's a journey, a gradual and steady dive. But every time you choose self-compassion over self-criticism, you take a significant step toward real healing. And so, you begin to rebuild internally the love that was once denied to you. 5. Reconnect with your body's wisdom ***. The body is a living archive. Even when the mind rationalizes, denies, or blocks experiences, the body keeps the emotional imprints of everything you've lived through. Gabor Maté's research shows how chronic illnesses, compulsive behaviors, and even persistent physical pain can be expressions of unprocessed emotional traumas. In other words, what hasn't been psychologically digested, the body expresses through symptoms. How many people live with chronic pain, exhaustion, insomnia, or palpitations without ever connecting these signs to prolonged emotional states like anxiety, chronic stress, deep loneliness, or suppressed anger? The body constantly sends us messages, but we've been taught to ignore them. We take medication, suppress the symptom, and move on. But the pain returns because its role is to alert us. Something within is crying out for attention. The fifth path to starting your healing, even without professional support, is to reestablish a conscious and loving connection with your own body. This means abandoning autopilot and noticing how emotions manifest physically. When you feel anxious, where do you feel in your body? When you're melancholic, what changes in your breathing, your chest, your muscles? This attentive observation is a powerful tool for self-awareness. Reconnecting with the body also involves simple practices, conscious breathing, activities that promote presence like meditation, silent walks, intuitive movement, or yoga. It's not about performance, but genuine reconnection. These moments are invitations to return to the present, to create an inner space where listening can flourish. And it's in this space that healing begins to manifest. Gabor Maté reminds us that emotional healing is also deeply physical. When you truly cry after years of holding back tears, you're releasing accumulated tension. When you allow a scream, a laugh, or a deep sigh, you're letting stagnant energy flow again. This is liberation, This is vitality returning to your system. Another crucial aspect of this bodily reconnection is dissolving the idea that your body is your adversary. Many people, especially those who've suffered abuse or were judged early on, develop a relationship of shame or rejection toward their own bodies. Healing this relationship is an essential part of emotional healing. The body isn't to blame. It was the battleground where the fight happened, and now it can become the sanctuary of your healing. So, start with small gestures, a gentler touch toward yourself, a mindful bath, a moment of stillness to listen to what your body has to say. Gradually, this listening expands, and you rediscover that within you lies an ancestral wisdom waiting to be heard. Healing begins the moment you consciously decide to return home, and your body is your first home. Unmasking patterns of self-sabotage. As you deepen your healing process, one of the biggest challenges that emerges is self-sabotage. It manifests in subtle ways. Chronic procrastination, compulsive behaviors, social isolation, relentless self-criticism, toxic relationships. These are all expressions of a wounded part that believes it doesn't deserve love, success, or happiness. This part was shaped in environments where pain was constant, and to survive, the mind created defense mechanisms. According to Gabor Maté, addiction, whether to substances, people, food, work, or technology, isn't the core issue but an attempt to soothe a deeper pain. Self-sabotage, similarly, is a desperate attempt at self-protection. But protection from what? From feeling, from reliving pain, from facing the inner void. Thus, a critical step in healing is identifying self-sabotage patterns and understanding them with compassion, not punishment. When you catch yourself self-sabotaging, instead of judging, pause, breathe, and ask, what am I trying to protect myself from right now? This simple question can reveal profound truths, showing that behind destructive behavior is a scared child trying to stay safe. This process of self-awareness requires repetition. At first, you might only notice after repeating the behavior. Gradually, you'll catch it during the act and eventually before it happens. This is growth. This is healing in motion. The goal is never perfection, but presence. Being present enough to make different choices, to nurture yourself instead of punishing, to support yourself instead of sabotaging. Another key element is consciously choosing the environments and people in your life. Gabor Maté stresses that context directly impacts our mental and emotional health. If you're surrounded by relationships that invalidate, manipulate, or reinforce your pain, healing becomes nearly impossible. Thus, part of the healing process involves setting boundaries, breaking cycles, and saying no to what makes you sick, even if that no initially comes with guilt. The good news is that as you heal, your energy shifts. You start attracting healthier relationships, positioning yourself with more clarity, and, most beautifully, choosing yourself. You begin to realize you deserve good things, that you don't need to beg for love, that you can create a new chapter and write a new story. Rewriting your personal story. An essential, often overlooked dimension of the healing process is reconstructing your personal narrative. The way you tell your story shapes how you feel about yourself. If you believe you're fragile, inadequate, or broken, you'll live trapped in that identity. But what if, by revisiting the past, you could see not just pain but resilience? Not just losses but lessons? Not just traumas but extraordinary survival? Gabor Maté emphasizes the importance of reframing our experiences, not denying what happened, but expanding the perspective. Trauma must be acknowledged, but it doesn't have to define you forever. We can honor our pain without defining ourselves solely by it. And this begins by changing how we talk about ourselves. Many of us carry inherited narratives. We grew up hearing we were complicated, difficult, inadequate. Or, conversely, we were pressured to be perfect, strong, successful, even as we crumbled inside. These stories shaped our self-image, but they can be rewritten, and you have that power. Rewrite your story with truth, but also with kindness. Tell yourself, I faced incredibly tough situations, and yet, I'm still here. Acknowledge your strength, your courage, The fact that despite everything, you keep seeking, feeling, trying. That's not weakness. It's resilience, pure humanity. Healing deepens when we stop seeing ourselves as victims of fate and start recognizing ourselves as conscious authors of our journey. You're not to blame for what you suffered, but you can choose how to handle it from now on. This new narrative is liberating. It empowers you, connects you to a sense of purpose, a deeper meaning. Perhaps the pain you've lived through can inspire others. Perhaps your healing can be a light for those still in darkness. Everything transforms when we see our suffering as a portal for transformation. And so, healing ceases to be a destination and becomes a path walked with awareness, presence, and compassion, gradually leading you back home to who you've always been before pain distorted you, returning to your original essence. Ultimately, healing is remembering who you were before the world told you who you should be. It's returning to your essence, your original wholeness. And this remembrance doesn't come from books or ready-made formulas. It emerges from within, from silent listening, gentle nurturing, and the daily choice to move forward despite fear, to love yourself even in the parts you've learned to reject. Gabor Maté affirms that healing isn't a final destination where everything is resolved. It's an ongoing journey of reconnection, one that can begin at any moment, including right now, without formal professional support, even without knowing exactly where to start. All it takes is one gesture, one choice, one yes to yourself. Perhaps right now you feel fragmented, isolated, exhausted. But let me remind you, this is part of the process. Feeling pain isn't a setback. It's a sign you're awakening, accessing deep layers, moving from numbness to presence. And that, in itself, is a miracle. Allow yourself to cry, to pause, to say, I can't do this anymore. Because it's exactly at that point that a new strength is born. A strength that doesn't come from rigidity, but from authenticity, from the courage to be vulnerable, to show up whole even in fragments, and to understand that gradually every fragment can be nurtured, healed, and integrated. The great lesson of this journey is you're not broken, you're in the process of rebuilding. And rebuilding yourself is one of the most sacred acts a human can experience. It doesn't require perfection, it requires authenticity. And it requires you to look at yourself with the eyes of someone who finally understands, I deserve to live fully. I deserve to love myself. If you've reached this point, know that you've already taken a giant step. You chose to listen, to feel, to begin. And that's all that matters. Healing is happening. Silent, profound, true. Healing is a return home. It's rediscovering yourself amid the wreckage of pain. It's remembering that even on the darkest days, there's a light that never went out, and that light is you. The message that remains is simple but powerful. Don't give up on yourself. When everything seems lost, choose to take one more step. The path to healing is gradual but certain, and every step is sacred. Did you enjoy this content? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments which of these healing paths touched your heart the most, or if you've experienced something similar. Your story might light the way for others seeking healing too. Until our next meeting,